All right, good. All right, thank you so much for coming. We're going to look at our OLC scorecards. Our scorecards are going to help us with our course design, kind of outline best practices on how a course should be set up, especially in Canvas, online or face-to-face. So there's two different documents for both of those. But to get to those, let's go over how to actually see those things. Here I am inside of my email. And on our left-hand side, we have groups. And inside of our SON group, where we love to send all of our emails out of, you should see Founders Hall in the top circle. We're going to click on three dots and go to the site. This is where we keep all our information. We talk about this all the time in faculty meetings with handbooks, syllabi, and all that good stuff. So inside of this space, right underneath our scholarly activity form that we always refer to, is the instructional technology page. And this is everything that I have. And then underneath here on the left-hand side are the scorecards. Okay, so OLC scorecards, we have the OLC scorecard online, the OLC scorecard face-to-face, and then we have the original version. So let me tell you how this started. The original version is the one that was created and patented by OLC. It has 50 items on it. Very intensive, way too much stuff in one shot, okay? So what we did is we worked closely with the ladies in the back and other members at TLT to kind of take those 50 pieces and whittle them down into best practices for us here at Widener University. Okay, not only best practices in all of education, but in our two main facets here on campus. Best practices for an online environment and best practices for a face-to-face environment. So of course you're going to see crossover in both of those, right? There's going to be things that are evident in both online and face-to-face. You're going to want to make sure that you have a syllabi. You're going to want to make sure that you have information on the front of the page. Make sure objectives are there. Things like that, right? You're going to have both of those things in both of those environments. So for the sake of today, we're just going to take a look at one of these. I would think that for the most part, I know, Delisa, you're probably more of a hybrid setting than anything. And Diane, you're more of a face-to-face setting than anything. And MBH, you're more of a face-to-face setting than anything, right? So let's take a look at the face-to-face stuff. And then obviously, if you're working more in the online environment, or we'll dabble a little bit in the hybrid, we can talk about how that might look a little bit different in the online. I think probably for the most part, when we wrap our head around the online is much more of an engaging, much more of an emphasis on the engagement setting, right? Because the learner is so independent, there's a lot more emphasis on the activities you're using, the resources you're getting them to, your instructions, things like that, because that face-to-face instruction isn't supplementing all those misconceptions that might occur from the online environment. So you'll see it's a little bit more detailed. But for here, so instead of looking at the original, we'll just dive into this first one here, which is the OLC card online. Okay, and this just brings you to a OneDrive file. Okay, we have our scorecard up at the top, and you know you're in Widener's version because we have the Widener logo up top here. You can see that you have, these would be the measures or the standards that we're looking at in each class. And then your columns are kind of a self-reflection of to what needs to occur for that measure or that standard. So for example, your first one, where a course includes welcome and getting started content, is that sufficiently present, meaning it's there, it's perfectly fine? Is that something that needs a minor revision? It's going to take about a half hour of work. Is it something that's going to need a moderate revision, an hour and a half or 2 hours to work? Or is this something that's a major revision that's 2 hours to work and then I guess not applicable if we're not talking about those things at all? Okay, so this is kind of set up in a self-reflection kind of state. So as you're sitting down at the beginning of the semester, or you're sitting down with a new course, or you're just becoming maybe the instructor of a course or course coordinator of a course, you're taking something over, this is meant to look at in the beginning, right? Obviously, it could be used at the end as a self-reflection if you're looking at evaluations, seeing how students might have answered, how they have felt the course went. and then kind of referring back to the scorecard, but very helpful in the beginning in kind of like a checklist fashion. Do I have this? Do I need more of this? Is this going to take a half hour? Is this going to take 2 hours? Okay, so kind of having that internal dialogue with yourself, and of course, dialogue out loud with me, or dialogue with colleagues, or dialogue with colleagues from TLT. So this is more of a self-paced kind of idea. Okay, so that was the online one. Let's jump into this face-to-face since we said that was the one we're going to look at. Okay, so if we take a look at
The group here is
do more. Your SON is not in that group. You see the word more? There you go. Yep. And then scroll, alphabetical order. There's SON. Up one. With 573. There you go. Click on that. And then the 3 dots. Site. There we go. Now you're in the right place. It'd be nice if that site thing wasn't so hidden. They put that up front for us, but that's not the way that's designed. Okay. So what we're going to do here is you are welcome to bring up a course on Canvas and kind of look at this side by side. But really all we're going to do is we're going to look at these standards and talk about what they mean and how they look. Okay, so for right now, I'm not going to show you necessarily how this looks on an online environment. We're just going to discuss as to what these standards mean, what that might look like, and how long that might actually take you to do. Okay, and for a lot of us, these things are already done because there's so many things that kind of need to be put through the ringer before they even get to a course, right? Your syllabi and all those documents are approved by full faculty before they even get to a course. So course objectives, an outline of things, the different ways that you're going to, let's see your mouse real quick. It's okay, no problem. You're in the nursing office. Here's SON. We're going to instructional technology. And then here we're going to face-to-face. Okay, and this is a document we're looking at. All right, so some of these things you're going to find that as we make our way through, we're already here in our sufficiently present place, okay? And that allows us to take our time and concentrate on the places that might need a little bit more work. Probably materials, resources, variety of activities, things like that, kind of the meat and the guts of the learning of the class. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. You'll see that if you click on the standards here, these link out to the actual standard from the online learning, I can never get that word right. Consortium. The online learning consortium, which is where this original scorecard came from. So obviously, if you need a little bit more detail or you need a little bit more background information as to what that object is referring to, you can click, it will bring you to this page. A lot of them have a video and kind of an overview of what that looks like. I think this one's pretty straightforward. A printable syllabus is available to all learners. We know from our blueprint here in the School of Nursing, we try to put that right on the front page. It's not hidden in files. It's not sent in an email. This is something that, again, has been approved by full faculty and is right there on the front page. So ideally, when you're looking at this scorecard, right off the bat, we should be sufficient, right? That document is right there for us. Same thing with your objectives. Are clearly defined, measurable, and aligned to learning activities and assessments. So we know your objectives are definitely on the syllabus because they have to be. But this would be the opportunity to reflect of where else are those objectives in the course. Do you put those objectives right on the front page so that students can see the 6 objectives that are being done in the class? Or maybe you have an objective done for each module. Maybe inside of a module, you're listing the objective that's being kind of overviewed or assessed during that period of time. So that's another place where you can kind of link that to kind of bring the learning roundabout. Because if you only look at the syllabus in the beginning of the course, those objectives are happening. You just don't know necessarily that they are happening. So of course, as you're working your way through modules or you're working your way through coursework, identifying that, okay, this is the activity we're working on today, or this is a topic we're discussing today, this links back to the fourth objective of the entire course, or this links back to objective 1, 2, and 3 that will be covered in this course. So kind of bringing that learning back around to the big picture. It's very easy to get caught up, this is what we're doing this week, this is what we're doing next week, because we're so regimented and we only have so much time, we know this. But being able to link back to the big picture with those objectives is certainly important there. So that's something that, even though we might be sufficiently present here in the syllabus and on the front page, maybe you could use a little bit of a minor revision, going through the modules, looking at what you're doing on a weekly basis and how that content on a weekly basis links back to those objectives, okay? And certainly that looks great for accreditation too, right? Because they want to make sure that we're meeting the objectives in the class. How are you meeting the objectives? Well, here's this assignment. These are the 4 objectives that this assignment is covering in this course, are the same 4 objectives that are on the syllabi. Okay, so you're kind of covering your own by doing that, right? Well, where did you do that? I did it in this assignment, or I did it in this discussion, or we covered it in this, conversation in class. So kind of linking those back. Does that make sense? All right, good. We can take a step down to course technology and tools. Frequently used tools are easily accessible. Any tools that are not utilized are removed from the course menu. We spent a little bit of time on this yesterday because the people that were here said, remove from the course menu. I didn't even know you could take stuff out of the course menu. So if you look at your class on Canvas, I'm just going to jump into one of my Canvas courses here. And you're welcome to do this as well, or you can just follow along. It's up to you. But when I look at a course as the instructor, the things that I see are just the blue items. The things that aren't visual are the things with the eyeball crossed out. Now, this is just as of a couple months ago. If you kind of rewind a little bit, it used to be the things that were visual were dark blue, and the things that weren't visual are a light blue. And it was like, well, what am I really looking at here? It was hard to kind of tell. So they kind of added this symbol here. So my pages, my quizzes, my syllabus, my outcome, and my conferences are not visible inside this course as a student, okay? But me as an instructor inside of my freshman seminar course, I'm not using collaborations. I'm not using chat. I'm not using Office 365. So what this scorecard is saying is that if these tools are not being used, they shouldn't be in this menu. It's just cluttering the menu for the learner. So how do we get rid of those? Inside of the course, if you go to Settings, and then Navigation, here are the things that are on that left-hand menu. And we're just able to take those items and drag them down to the places where they are going to be hidden. And now those 3 items that I wasn't referring to before, my Office 365, my collaborations, and my chat, are going to be out of that menu as well. Okay, so a little bit easier viewing for the student, especially since for probably the majority of us, we sleep on that home page, inside of modules, file, discussion board, maybe quizzes, but there's a lot of stuff over there that you're not in all the time. Okay, so we're not necessarily saying that you don't have to use those things, but if you're not using them, getting them out of the navigations can certainly improve the layout of the course. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, good. Fabulous. Just for clarification, we had a question yesterday. The reason why the syllabus isn't being viewed here inside of all your courses is because the syllabus is the home page. So that we're not causing confusion between the students, we take out the word syllabus. They only have home. But that's really where you are inside of Canvas when you're typing on the home page. You're typing on the Canvas syllabus page. But we use that as the home. So that's why we're out there. All right. That's good on navigation. Let's see. Any technology tool meets accessibility standards. We mean accessibility standards by being able to see it clearly, for videos being able to see transcriptions, for audio making sure the sound is good, there's no echo in the background, for kind of different contrasts, for screen readings, making sure that your pictures have alternative text. A lot of different things could be meeting accessibility standards. So, this is where we kind of get into the conundrum of the School of Nursing, because we don't have students that need to meet accessibility standards. Our students aren't deaf, our students aren't blind, they can't be nurses in that state. So it's not that we don't need to do that. The standard still exists, it just might not necessarily exist for this clientele, okay? And not only that, it's just because they don't need the transcription, it doesn't mean the transcription of a video or good sound quality of video is not helpful for the student, right? Just because the student doesn't need transcribing doesn't mean that they can't benefit from having more transcribed text underneath the video, right? So if I'm a visual learner, maybe I do better by reading the text as you're talking. Or if I'm an auditory learner, maybe I do better by just listening than watching the whole video. So we want to make sure that we're hitting bases with all those different types of learners. So how do we meet those accessibility standards? How do we get text on our videos? That's what I'm asking you. That was my question. Yeah, because we do use a lot of them. So where do your videos come from?
Well, YouTube.
YouTube. So does YouTube, do they have transcriptions on there? A lot of them do, believe it or not. A lot of those things are already transcribed because they're already on YouTube. Not all of them, but the ones where you have, like the ones that you and I use a lot, where there's like literally millions of views on them, chances are the work has already been done on that video to get it transcribed. The transcription is there, you just gotta hit the transcription button underneath the video. Okay, but the stuff that's teacher made, right? If you're going through and you're narrating a PowerPoint, or you know you're gonna be out for a week and you're presenting 2 lessons online, and that might be through a Zoom video, or that might be through a narrated PowerPoint or a voiceover or something like that. Those kinds of things are teacher made. So if you do that in Zoom and you save it to the cloud, it automatically gets narrated. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, so your transcription can be downloaded exactly with the video. Okay, 2 separate files. You know this? Okay, well, you do that. So not only can you do that
How
with.
do you do that? They do the voice over PowerPoint.
Say what?
How do you find it? How do you do a voice over PowerPoint?
Well, the voice over PowerPoint would be made by you, right? So that would be something that we would need to send to our transcription service to get transcribed, which we have here on campus. So what we do is we provide that video to the service we use, which is what's it called?
CL24.
CL24.
Yeah, actually, I don't think we can capture voice over PowerPoint slide. That is why we recommend to use Zoom Record.
Okay.
Because it is kind of you make lecture with your PowerPoint slide, so you can use screen share to share your PowerPoint slide, and you can record your lectures. But by this way, so you can have the caption file. Because
Okay.
we don't have any ways to transcribe voice over PowerPoint slide. We
Okay.
can make that effective.
All right. So a teacher-made entity would be done through Zoom because it's already doing the transcription that way.
Which you know how you can put the audio button on a slide
Yes.
and you can voice record that?
Right.
But if we send it away to Cielo, they don't hear that to give a caption to.
Oh, okay.
So the alternative, like you said, would be to record yourself running through
Okay.
your PowerPoint.
So CELO needs an MP4
Yes.
to be able to transcribe, and what we're giving them is a PowerPoint file,
Yeah.
which is not an MP4, which they can't transcribe. Okay, that makes sense.
So
So-
describe all the ums and the ahs. and
Correct.
everything else.
Yeah, things like that. So if you're doing teacher-made stuff through Zoom, is best practice. Well, obviously, we have some old content. Before we had Zoom, we have a bunch of stuff that people use. I can think of a couple of people in particular that are just straight voice over PowerPoint. So that would be something where probably in the future, you redo those things on Zoom so that we're meeting accessibility standards that way.
What's beautiful about both Cielo and Zoom is that you can edit your caption file. So you can actually erase all the ums and the ahs if you want to, so that what's coming up on the screen doesn't include the ums and the ahs. If they spell your vocabulary word wrong, you can go in and make sure that that specific terminology is spelled correctly. Whether it's just a specialized term or if it's a site or whatever it might be. So you can edit those files before they're added to the video to make sure that it's correct. Yeah.
Get rid of some of that stuff,
Yeah.
kind of the white noise stuff.
Yeah. We all and ah all the time.
Sure.
You just don't want to have to read it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. So that's something that I think the accessibility thing is very broad. There's a lot of places where we could get better on that. There's a lot of places where we'll continue to improve on that. I think probably the course videos is probably our first step because of how much there is on that. Just kind of coming up with best practices and what we can do to kind of make that better for not only ourselves as instructors, but for all the learners to make sure we're hitting all those facets. So that's just videos, but like we said, you know, the color scheme on pages, the fact that a screen reader can read what's actually on the page is very important. So if someone's using those accessibility tools on the computer, you know, they know what the screen reader knows what you're looking at. For the most part, because you're using a blueprint from the school, that stuff is built in. Okay, but it's all the stuff that you're making on your own. So if you're going into modules and you're creating an entire page, an overview for a module, and you're adding images and you're adding text, kind of making sure that a screen reader or the accessibility tools can make their way through that. So we know that inside of Canvas, when I am working in this area here, let me go to my skills for success and do edit. Here, this is just our regular HTML page. We see these all over Canvas. Anytime you create an assignment, a discussion board, anything, you get this box with all your tools. Okay, this little guy right here checks the accessibility inside of that box. So if you have an image up or you have some kind of layout issue or some kind of font issue, it's going to run through what it sees to check the accessibility in that area. So you can see that I just got balloons for checking the accessibility in that area. I'm good. There are no problems inside of that area. So as far as just regular text, you're gonna be fine. But when you start adding pictures and videos and different links, things like that, that's where you wanna make sure that those accessibility standards are being met. But that's a great little gadget, right in, again, just right up here in the top where we can click it and it will check the accessibility for that particular area. Okay, and again, that's once and done. So if you're designing a course or you're working inside of the first section, you know that when you go through and you hit those standards and you check accessibility in one, you can just move that over to the other, right? So that you're able to just kind of roll that out throughout the semester. It's the same way we do with our courses, but kind of making sure that everything checks the boxes to start, then you know that every other course is right in line with the standard that way too. Does that make sense? Okay. We'll move on. A logical, consistent, and uncluttered layout is established. The course is easy to navigate. Consistent color scheme, icon layout, or content's organized together, and we have great titles, all that other stuff that kind of goes into course layout. Again, because you're using a blueprint, a lot of that stuff is there for you. When you click on a class to start for the semester, this information and this color scheme is kind of already established for you. The only thing I added here was an image, right? And this is just putting an image here, but we have a place to put our title. Our title is bolded. It's at the top. It jumps off the page. You have a place for your instructor name, your time and location, your credits, syllabi and other items, course description. This all comes with the blueprint. So the blueprint is very much aiding us in making sure that we hit this with consistency. We're logical, it's consistent across the board, your titles are bolded, all those things that kind of go into your eye making your way down the page in a pleasing manner. as opposed to just regular text, straight down, black and white, right? It becomes very overwhelming. So places where you have links, those links are blue, they're underlined, they show that you're going to an outside source. Some things that might be important, you might have in a different color, or you might have highlighted to kind of make you jump off the page. The same way you would do if you're writing notes in a class, right? If there's something that's very important, you're going to put something around that place to make sure that jumps off the page as opposed to everything else that's on there. So you kind of want to make sure you're doing that for the students as well. We're bombarding them with a whole lot of information, and that's just one course, right? A lot of them have 5 other, maybe 6 other courses going at that time. So we want to make sure we're putting those major points and those things that might be important in front of them in a logical, kind of appeasing manner. Does that make sense? And then, of course, that goes along with your modules as well, right? You kind of have this default one to start. Everyone has this to start. And then you have a blank one here, which I've deleted. But then remember, that's your best practices one. Starts out with an overview of the module, then an assignment, then a discussion board, then maybe a quiz, depending on what you're doing. But that's setting you up for that nice logical sequence of working your way through the course content. The same way we would want that to be set up for students. Consistent and concise throughout the entire course. So I know when I start a module, I'm going through the same exact steps that I started the modules before. Okay, nothing's new, nothing's different. Not only is that awesome for the student, but you as the instructor then aren't fielding 50 million emails when something new comes up. Nothing is new. As long as you were successful in the first one, we weaned out those kinks. In the first couple of weeks, we had a conversation about what's expected. From then on out, you're just making your way through, okay? Because you're consistent and concise throughout the entire course. I think a good, and I saw a great example of this morning. Here, let me show it to you here, because I can. This is our adjunct faculty course for all the clinical faculty. Okay. And I was working with Darlene this morning. She has a lot of stuff in modules here. What can be better about that?
Nestle some of them together.
Say it again?
It's kind of a lot.
It is a lot. Absolutely. I agree with you. It is a lot.
Can you bring some of them together?
You could bring some of them together. You'll see that right here. Like this is the one we did this morning. We named it Nursing 445 Leadership Course Files. When I click on this course files, I then get the 3 things that are associated with 445, as opposed to those 3 things being listed separately. So that is a good idea, kind of bunching them together.
There's some headers up there.
We definitely need some headers up there. I thought the naming could have been done way better in here, because we start Nursing 206, then Nursing 262 with a hyphen, then Nursing 330 with no hyphen, then 333 with a hyphen, then 334 with no hyphen, then no number at all, no number at all, no number at all, no number at all, then 465, again, no, there's no consistency here. We're kind of all over the place. So I said for her, that's a good place where you kind of just sit down and work on renaming. Because as an instructor, I want to go in, and you can see that this is complete only the courses you are assigned to teach. It might take me a little bit to find out what I'm actually looking at there. I want to look in those first 4 terms and find the 3 numbers that I'm associated with. I only need 330 stuff. My eye should go right there. But I'm all over the place because of everything that's here. That kind of makes sense, right? So the consistency, especially, maybe not so much in the face-to-face stuff, but certainly in the online stuff. As you're setting up those modules and you have maybe 6, 7, 8 things underneath a module, And that stuff's all over the place. Different hyphens, different capital letters, different terms, kind of coming up with this is the way it is. So we're going to set the ground rules in module 1, and we're going to follow that all the way through, right? It's the same way as if you opened a notebook and you didn't use tabs, or you didn't use titles on your page, or you didn't put the date. Imagine trying to find something from 3 weeks ago, right? Good luck remembering what happened in that meeting. I need dates on everything. So you want to kind of set that up in that same way for the student, as if they're opening the notebook, they want to go to that information. How are they going to find it easily? Okay, so let's work on our naming. Let's work on our consistency across the board when it comes to that stuff. And really, not only in modules, but also here in assignments. Okay, so we have the terms module 1 and module 2 in both of these. But here we have adjunct faculty online, module 1 post quiz. So is this the quiz for this? I don't know, those are 2 different titles, right? So being able to differentiate through that, we're trying to avoid the emails, because that's an email you're gonna get. Is this the quiz I'm supposed to take to go with this? So kind of making sure that stuff marries, right? I can see that this is tied to this, or I can clearly see that this has nothing to do with this. These are 2 separate things, right? So there goes that consistency across the board there. Let's see, I think that was, yeah, we're still here, design and layout. Instructions are provided and well written. We would certainly hope so. That's something that we know takes a little bit of time. And certainly as you make your way through the course and you get more questions from students, you realize what you might need to provide more instruction on, or you get a whole bunch of work turned in and everyone missed the same thing. You know what you need to provide more instruction on, or you get the same question over and over again. You know what you need to provide more instruction on. So this is something that certainly grows over time, right? Maybe you provided way too much instruction and the students have way too much detail and they're really overthinking what they need to be doing, right? So maybe dialing it back a little bit. So that's a great place for self-reflection. Of course, we would hope they're well written. We are in higher education, so we would hope that they're well written. We would hope that we're free of grammatical and spelling errors, but that's not only something that you can do, but something that you can always have a peer put an eye on, right? Have someone read it for you. Have someone take a look at it. It's the same thing you would do if you were submitting an article to someone or you're submitting your CV to someone. Please just take a look at it for me. We don't need an expert, but I just need somebody else's eyes. Because at that point, you've probably been looking at it for quite a while. And same thing with me. When I'm looking at it for something for quite a while, I lose track of it. I forget what I wrote, or I wrote it so that I can read it. But when you read it, that doesn't make sense to you, right? We want to make sure we're writing these things for everyone. So having a peer looking at it or running it through Grammarly or running it through some kind of word check tool to make sure that your pronunciation is correct, all your spelling is correct, things like that. Okay, and again, once it's good, it's good. Then we know we can just roll it over. Easy enough there in design and layout? All right, good. You can see that we're kind of making our way through. We're on the second page here, the content and activities. I think that this is probably the place where we would probably have the most kind of moderate, major, minor revision fluctuation. Okay, we know that a lot of the content inside of the courses is pre-prescribed, right? There's stuff the students need to know at the end. It's just a question of how is that knowledge being gained? What kind of activities are being done, or what is being done? Master's level, we don't really have a lot of fluctuation with that. Guess what you're doing? You're writing a paper, right? That is what it is, right? In undergrad, we have a little bit more fluctuation with that. How are we going to meet these standards? Where's that 10% or 20% of the grade going to come from? Okay, that's where we can kind of expand and branch out a little bit more, as opposed to, here's a discussion board. You do it twice, your classmates do it twice. Not very higher order thinking. Okay, I can certainly write something, you can write something. It's probably a great chat. I don't know how much I got out of it, Okay, so how can we take those kinds of things to the next level? I'm not saying there's not a place for that. There's certainly a place for that. But I know that some of our courses, and probably more than we want to admit, are probably drowning in things like that. Like we're literally doing things just to do that, just to have something to grade, or just to have something the students create. But how can we take that stuff to the next level? So let's take a look at this a little bit. So content activities, course offers access to a variety of engaging resources to facilitate communication, collaboration, deliver content, support learning, and engagement. So again, the key word here is variety, okay? It's not that you don't have any discussion boards or that you don't have any papers. It's that you have a variety of things in there. I know that I'm being assessed on a variety of things so that I can display my learning in a variety of ways. Because I might excel much more at a discussion board and replying to your post than I would writing an APA paper about the same topic. So I want to give the students an opportunity to be able to show their learning in a variety of ways so that I can give them credit in a variety of ways, right? So we know that a lot of these tools already exist inside of Canvas, right? We have the discussion board for collaboration. We have different things that we can use for engagement in kind of making teams, going back and forth, setting up group projects, team project, things like that. So a lot of that is at the instructor's discretion. And these kind of build into each other. Not only do we have a variety of activities, but these activities develop higher order thinking skills and problem solving skills and provide for critical reflection and analysis. So I'm not just brushing the surface, right? I'm not just giving a topic and getting an overview of the topic. What's taking that to the higher order level? Where is the analysis? Where's the real world connection, right? How are we taking them from just reading it out of a book to applying it inside of the clinical setting? Or just reading it out of the book and applying it upstairs in the simulation lab? Okay, how are we taking it to the next level? I think we do a pretty good job of that because we have the clinical setting and the simulation lab to kind of even out those aspects. You're obviously going to have the academic aspect. You have to make students write. You have to make students take tests. That's not going anywhere. But here in nursing, we're able to provide kind of those supplemental opportunities, the real world connections that they don't have across the university, right? How do you apply that stuff in social work all the time? How do you apply that stuff in education before they can actually do student teaching in senior year? So we want to make sure that we're able to embed that stuff. But here in nursing, we're able to do that right away in sophomore year when they start in labs, right? We're able to kind of have the academic side where you know you're going to have to learn. You got to learn it. It's black and white. It's nursing material. But we're able to kind of supplement that stuff with the real world connection inside of the labs and the clinical settings. So we have that going for us really well. I think we can really do a better job with the reflection and the analysis stuff. Looking back at what went wrong, what went right, what can do better, and even peer analysis, sitting down with a partner. What do you feel like went right? This isn't something that's written. This can just be a collaborative conversation. So even though we're saying it here and it's on our scorecard, this is just something that you have designed inside of your lessons at the end of the day. Sitting down and the last 30 seconds is an exit ticket in class. What went well? What do you still need more help with? What are you still confused about? Having a conversation or writing it on a note card or writing it on a big piece of paper or writing it on the board, just that opportunity to self-reflect, I think gets lost a lot of times. Because in the classrooms I'm in, when the bell is 5 minutes away from ringing, they're already packing up and the book bag's already gone. They are ready to go out that door quicker than you could ever get out any type of reflection. So that's something that needs to be embedded inside of class on a I wouldn't say a daily basis, but on a regular basis. So that the expectation is at the end of this class, you're going to be reflecting on what went wrong and what went right. So you better be thinking about it now. I'm not going to catch you off guard. You know that this is coming. This is something that we're going to do inside of this learning environment. That self-reflection is very important. Course provides activities that emulate real-world applications. We talked about that with labs and the clinical settings. Thank goodness we have a great opportunity to do that. We do a lot of case studies and problem-based learning. We see a lot of that when it comes to working on NCLEX questions and kind of all that stuff. You're always talking about that stuff. That scenario, that particular time, how are you going to use the nursing process in that particular moment. I've learned more about nursing in the last 4 years than I could ever think would ever happen in my entire life. But I'm proud about that. I can feel like I'm actually talking about it. Yeah, it's crazy. An honorable nurse, yeah. Don't tell anybody in the hospital that. I'm out on that. Okay, so our problem-based activity, I think we do a good job of that. And Diane, I've seen some great stuff in your classroom when it comes to that stuff. Kind of working in groups, going around and allowing them to have conversations about that. Yeah.
More case studies though with the psych nursing course. You can't hardly get through the content on
Yeah, that's the problem. There's a lot of content.
Activity.
Yeah.
Although
But
we
knowing
have
that you have,
I've given them some matching tests. I've given them.
good, but knowing that you have an opportunity for other stuff. Like we said, that black and white stuff's not going anywhere. The content inside the course isn't going anywhere. The textbook's not going anywhere. NCLEX not going anywhere. All that stuff's still going to be here. But how can we kind of, spice it up? What can we do to just give it a little bit more? Get them up out of their seats. Get them talking to each other. Get them engaged. Get them to self-reflect. Those things that kind of just go by the wayside sometimes, especially in the bigger classes. It's hard to do that when you got 180 people sitting in class. Okay, but for a lot of that, just turning to a partner or turning to someone in, think, pair, share. All those lovely Maslow elementary strategies that were drained in our head in undergrad. All that stuff, goes right through to higher ed. All great strategies. Okay, and text is available, easily accessible format. All text is in a readable. We kind of talked about that in accessibility, and certainly with your syllabi in a PDF format on your homepage, you need that right away. So that's good. Questions there on content and activities. Again, a real good opportunity to kind of sit down at the beginning of the semester and look at what makes up your class. What makes up that 100%? Is that 100% meeting and touching all the different aspects that we have here on this scorecard? Or is there a place where I could use a little bit more higher order thinking? Or is there a place where I need to apply a little bit more of a real world connection? Right? We're not asking you to recreate the wheel here. We're asking you to just take what you have and again, spice it up a little bit. A little self-reflection before the semester. How can we make it a little bit better? Is it going to be perfect? No, nothing's ever perfect. Ideally, you're looking at evaluations every semester and you're changing based on those evaluations. What's being taught, how long it's being taught, what's being assessed, how it's being assessed. All of that stuff is vital feedback for the instructor. But here, it's kind of a preemptive feedback, right? An internal conversation as to what's being occurred as you're teaching and how the learner's being assessed. Okay, and that goes right into your assessment and feedback. Course grading policies, including consequences for late submissions, are clearly stated for course information area and or syllabus. All of that's in our syllabus. Okay, I think I can certainly do a better job, and I find this on my online informatics course, of the expectation of lateness. Because I do have a lot of people that kind of push the button on a day, 2 days, 3 days, and then I have some where I'm chasing for longer than 3 days. I don't want to fail you in a 1 credit informatics course. I'm like, come on, turn your stuff in. But in some of those higher stakes courses, you got to hold their feet to the fire. So every day it's late, it's 10 points off. Or you didn't respond to the message board, you only got 5 points instead of 10 points. Especially on those individual things like the message boards or individual assignments, making sure that stuff is right in front of you. Because again, you're saving your own rear when it comes to the end of the semester. If they're a point or two away from something, that's the first thing we're going to go to. Where didn't they get full credit and why? Was it because you didn't answer twice on the message board? Well, it clearly says here in the guidelines that you have to answer twice, 300-word minimum, to get full credit. You answered twice, but you only typed 150 words. So I'm sorry you didn't meet expectations. So here, not only are you providing it clearly for them, you're covering your own rear in the end when we do have those people who kind of come fighting sometimes. Okay? So again, a lot of that's in the syllabus. Criteria for assessment of grading of an assignment clearly articulated. Rubrics, exemplary work. Love the idea of rubrics. I know we have people who use rubrics. I think there is definitely a need to provide more exemplars. And I know that some of our professors are very hesitant to provide exemplars because you feel like you're giving them you feel like you're giving them the answer, or you feel like you're giving them how to do it without them figuring that out. So I'm not necessarily, yes, a template or an outline is a great way to start. Or instead of, providing a whole paper, maybe providing an intro, providing a paragraph. What does APA look like in this case? Because again, that's where you get a lot of the questions. That's where you get a lot of the emails. I didn't know we had to do it that way. I didn't know that's the way APA did it. Or I didn't know what the outline looked like. Yeah, right now we're in a whole different edition. Right? So all of that stuff is ever changing. So providing those opportunities and providing the exemplars can really go a long way. Learners are informed when a time response is required. Proper leading time is provided to ensure that there's an opportunity to prepare for accommodation. So again, due dates. This is when it's due. This is when I intend to have it graded by. If I don't have it graded by this point, it's because of da-da-da-da-da. I have my freshmen tell me all the time that they're in classes that have no grades in them. Thank goodness that's not in our nursing building. I don't know what they're doing in those other places. But how you could go throughout the semester with no grades is beyond me. And pay what we pay, what they pay to come here. I mean, I'd be up in arms. It's a lot of money. So I would want to know what's happening. I know that we do that here in our building. I think probably the thing that we could get better on timely wise is email correspondence. But that's something that's always going to be a hassle because we get so many, right? So I think that is a place where we can always improve, but that just comes in due time. But again, as things are clearer and as things are set up better, the email correspondence become less and less and less. But if you're just throwing stuff together and there's a lot of things in there that don't make sense, or there's different dates in different places, or different points in different places, or different titles in different places, that's where you get all those questions. And then all of a sudden the student says, well, I don't know, they never emailed me back. I don't know the answer to that question. Well, if we would have made it clearer in the first place, they wouldn't even have the question. They wouldn't even have the opportunity to not even email them back because they never emailed you. The question was answered because you were clear to start. Okay, so again, that's on the front end. Let's make sure it's good on the way to go. And learners have an easy access to a well-designed and up-to-date grade book. That goes right into our conversation about keeping grades up. And our grade book is the way it is now. It will be changing after the new year, so you can get used to that after you come back from Christmas. We said that there are 2 tutorials coming up on that grade book.
Are you majorly different?
I wouldn't say majorly different, but I would say
There are a
different.
couple of things that can really trip you up.
Yes.
About post, if you're someone who uses the mute function when it comes to grading, how grades are posted. Yeah, so there'll be one on the 8th and the 30th.
And I'll bring those up again in the faculty meeting and where you can sign up to do those, because that's same thing. Even though on the 8th you won't be here, but it's offered on Zoom. So sit at home on the couch, bring it up, listen to it. It's recorded as well, so you don't even have to be there on the 8th. You watch it on the 15th. But then at least you have an overview as to what to expect when you start entering those grades come the end of January when the first assignment's due, and all of a sudden you're looking at a completely different page. So we want to make sure we're touching base on that too. Okay? Questions, concerns, or comments? How you doing there, Donna? Recovered pretty well?
Yeah, great job.
All right, awesome. All right, so again, this is the face-to-face version. We have the online version as well. If you're kind of hybrid face-to-face stored, you can look at both of those. Excuse me, and if you really want to dive deep, you can always go way back to the original version and you can see why we pared this down, because it's a little overwhelming when you look at it to start. Okay? There's a little self-assessment for when you're thinking about spring. All right, if you guys don't have anything else, that's all I got. I appreciate you coming today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Donna.
Bye.
You bet.
All right.